Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a review on the new Colourpop So Jaded palette in collaboration with Kathleen Lights. I'm going to be doing a tutorial on this look using the palette. I used like 10 different shades of the palette, a bunch of different textures. We'll talk about the formulas, all the shades, and some comparisons with her other Colourpop palettes. So if you guys want to know everything about the new Colourpop palette, the biggest Colourpop palette to date, then just keep on watching. So here is the Colourpop So Jaded palette in collaboration with Kathleen Lights. This palette retails for $39 and there are 30 shades in this palette. It is a huge palette. It's Colourpop's biggest palette, which made me very excited. I love that they're doing like different kinds of palettes because all of them basically are like this size and very similar layouts. But really excited about this one. When I saw this, I knew that I wanted to get it because it's just something different from Colourpop, and there's a lot of different colors in here. I'm gonna go ahead and insert swatches of all of the shades. Basically, it's like almost like a complementary palette to like a rainbow theme palette. You basically get like every kind of color scheme, but not just like a basic blue, red, brown, orange. There's a lot of variation within that, and there's a lot to work with. If you want to do like an all purple look, there's a ton of shades that you can use for that. You could use a ton of different shades for like an all blue look. I love how much color is going on in this palette, but you still have just enough neutral for a lot of different everyday looks. And then what I also like about this palette is that there's a couple different textures. So we have one Super Shock shadow over here, and then we have two pressed glitters. And I'm liking the pressed glitters in some of the Colourpop palettes, like the California Love palette has a pressed glitter in there. I don't really need more than like one or two in a palette, so I think that's totally fine because you can use this one with like a lot of these warmer tones like I have on my eyes today. And then I did a look on my Instagram using Opal, which is an awesome shade. So here is, just so you guys can see like a look at the different textures. This shade Diamond is basically like a glittery topper. I have it actually in my inner corner today, so it looks like super sheer, but you can kind of layer it to transform other shades. And then I'll swatch the two glitters. So this one is Topaz. That's what's on my eye today. I just applied that with some glitter glue. And then the shade Opal is so pretty. Really like this shade. This is more of a blue tone glitter, so you have a lot of variety to work with in this palette. I do want to take a look at the palette compared to some of Kathleen's other palettes. Look how baby this looks compared to the giant palette. So this is Dream Street. This came out 2 years ago. This was her first palette with Colourpop. And just taking a look, you can see some shade similarities, like some of the neutral tones on this top row and some of the blues. But there's really not identical shades in there. The undertones are pretty different, and this is definitely a more warm tone palette compared to this one. And then the Zodiac palette, there is like more similarities. Ooh, we get a mirror with this palette. Forget about this palette. I haven't used this one in a while. But the Zodiac palette kind of almost reminds me of like the original Anastasia Norvina palette, and now she did that Norvina palette that's like big and expanded. And that's how I see the Zodiac palette and the So Jaded palette. I feel like this is kind of like the inspiration for a more expanded version, which is this. And it basically is because Kathleen did talk about in her So Jaded reveal video that this palette was like themed around birthstones. She has every birthstone in here and then different crystals, and this is all 12 zodiac signs. So the zodiac sign colors and the birthstone colors are going to be a little bit similar. We do have one shade overlap. The shade, the Virgo in here, this dark brown shade is called Stoned right here. And she did mention that in her palette that it's just the exact same shade. But other than that, there's no shade overlaps. But I do see how this palette kind of serves as an inspiration for this one. I kind of think of this one as the extended remastered version of the Zodiac palette, because I can see like a very similar theme of some of like the cool tone shades and the more like blue tones and the purple tones in this palette. But really they are all standalone palettes. You can get completely different looks with all three palettes. Of course, you can get a lot more looks with this one. I love how much variety is in here. There's no two shades that are like too similar to each other which I really like. I don't feel like there's any wasted space in this palette, and I love how many textures there are as well. But that's kind of the overall vibe. Lots of good things going on with the So Jaded palette. I'm gonna go ahead into the tutorial so you guys can see how I did my eye look today using the palette. So getting into the palette, I'm gonna start off with the shade Royal Jewels. I'm gonna stick to some of these like warmer orangey tones. I actually want to use the shade Topaz, maybe the pressed glitter in here, but I want to do like a really fall themed eye look. And I've been using this shade to like start off every look with this palette because it is like the lightest neutral matte shade in here. And then I'm also going to mix that in with the shade You're a Gem, which is kind of like a rosy peachy tone. And I'm just gonna apply this shade lightly because it is a little pink, and I just want the crease color to get a little bit deeper, but I don't want it to get too pink. So I'm gonna move into one of the more orangey shades. I think I'm gonna go in with this shade. This is the shade Carnelian. Up here, this matte orangey brown. So I'm gonna pack this shade mostly into my outer corner, then just kind of press it into my crease. Yeah, that's exactly the color that I want. I don't even know what color I'm using on my lid yet, but I did want just like a really kind of like brick tone, burnt orange for my crease. So I'm gonna add a little bit of the shade Garnet in the outer edge of my eye. It is already like pretty deep, but I just want to make it a little bit more of a reddish tone. I could have totally done this shade on its own, but I didn't want it to necessarily be like all red. I still want like that oranginess. So just a little hint of red on the outer edge. All right, so I'm going in with this shade Sunstone for my lid color. It's a little bit more of like a neutrally peach shade, but I wanted something a bit lighter for my lid. That way, when I add in the glitter, it really pops. I feel like this shade is a good like everyday lid color. So I'm taking another wet flat brush, and I want to go in with the shade Ruby because this is a really pretty color. I thought it was going to be like too much for my lid. I just thought like the whole thing would look too red for what I wanted. But I want to, yeah, just play with this on the outer edge. Give it a little bit more of like a metallic look. So for glitter, I always use the Too Faced glitter glue, and then I just take like a little bit on the back of my hand, and then I just take a brush and I just dab on a little wherever I'm gonna put it on my eye, and then I use that same brush. It doesn't need to be too perfect because then I can just kind of scatter it out. And then I'm going to take that brush and just dip it into the shade Topaz. And there we go. Oh, that's a lot of glitter. So I'll diffuse it out a little bit. All right, so I built that up a whole lot, which is totally fine. I'm just going to take a brush and start to diffuse it out. I just really wanted it to stick onto my lid. But I'm just going to take a clean brush and start to flake a little bit away to soften it up. My eyes are pretty much done. I just added on a brown liner on my lower lash line, and then I'm just gonna finish off the lower lash line with the shade Garnet. And then I think that is the look. All right, so I just threw on some lashes, and then lastly, I wanna apply this shade Diamond. This is a Super Shock shadow. I just wanna pop that into the inner corner. And from there, I think I'm all done with this eye look. All right, so this is the final look with the So Jaded palette. Very fall inspired. And then if you guys are curious about my lip color, it is Makeup Forever 109. This is one of my favorite like deeper shades for fall. But overall, super happy with the So Jaded palette. I honestly have no complaints. One thing, this is so basic of me to say, but the only thing I wish there was in this palette was like one medium warm brown, which is just so basic, but honestly so standard for me and how I do my eye look. So that's probably like a personal problem. We do have like some orangey matte shades, but I just wish there was just like a warm medium tone brown in there, because then I can mix it in with some other shades. But that's the only thing that I'm missing in this palette. And of course I have a million in my collection. There's one in Dream Street Zodiac palette that I could use as well. But other than that, like, If I go to do a purple look, I have all of this to work with. If I go to do a blue look, I have all of this to work with, which I love. I love having like multiple versions of a shade. Like there's some different green tones in here that you can play with as well. So you can get very monochromatic looks with this palette, and there's not just like a random yellow in there and you're like, what do I do with that? So really love it. I feel like there's so much thought in this palette of how to like combine the different colors. And overall, the formula in this palette is really great too. I don't have any complaints there. I really love Colourpop palettes, Colourpop shadows. So it's the same standard formula for Colourpop. So overall, definitely really happy with the So Jaded palette. I think it's definitely worth the $39, and Colourpop always has sales. They have different coupon codes and stuff that you can get it even cheaper as well. And yeah, everything about this palette I really like. I really like the color schemes, the formula, the size of it. I think it's really fun because you have a lot more colors to play with. So let me know if you guys ended up getting this palette in the comments below. In my description box, I'll also link the blue eyeshadow tutorial that I did with this palette on my Instagram. So I'll link that below. And also let me know what kind of eyeshadow tutorial you want to see next with this palette, what shades you want me to use, because I'll do some more eye looks on my Instagram as well. But that's going to be everything for today's video. If you guys liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.